It's Tuesday, I think, June 18th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. It is gardening day. How's your grow season going? What is the latest in your garden? We'd like to hear from you, and if you want tips or have questions, we've got you covered because we're here on The Signal. We are rooting for your success. All right, everyone, we're off to the races for another gardening day. And John Pike, who texts the show and does all the video work, he told me he really enjoyed the pun at the for the introduction there, rooting, which is great. So thanks, John. He's nodding, smiling a little bit. No, he's he's ignoring me. Michael Murray, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
All right, thanks for coming in. So what's on the go with your garden?
Oh, wow. Everything is growing like topsy. Yeah. Things are coming into bloom everywhere. This forecast this week, the weather, it's fantastic.
Bit of heat.
It's time to plant. It's time to plant.
Get out there. So when you say it's time to plant...
Everything.
Just put it in the ground, right?
Everything.
Cats, dogs, kids,
anything
you name
you
it.
Can
plant
find to
them
put
in the ground.
It'll grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it's perfect time. Small seeds, transplants, annuals. It's showtime. It's time to plant.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's lovely.
We made it again.
We made it again, and what's really interesting is that wet, dreary weather that we've experienced the last month or so, although it certainly wasn't the most pleasant to endure, but it certainly has had a big impact on plant growth. It wasn't exceptionally cold. We were getting nighttime temperatures 7, 8 degrees, 5 degrees. Daytime temperatures 12, 13, the odd 15, 16 degree day. But now all that moisture now is paying off because now the plants are coming forward. Just about everything is in bloom. The only thing I don't see that's leafed out yet are members of the ash family. They're a little slow. They're always slow. But they're coming. They're breaking bud.
It's a family thing.
It's a family thing with the ashes.
Yeah, they're slow.
They're slow.
Can't help it.
Even lindens have bloomed out and come out. My linden home is in full leaf, which is another slow plant. And oak is starting to break open. That's a slow one, too. So.
Yeah, I always wonder, because like some stuff that goes kind of gangbusters, you're like, hey, here we go. And then others, like when I'm out for a run or something, like, oh, you're not really here yet. And then I'm like, there's a bit of me that wonders, I'm like, are you going to do the thing that you do? And then they always do, typically.
They always do. Some slower than others. The tree that always impresses me the most in this landscape, and I think we should be planting more of them everywhere, is members of the beech family, because they thrive, they come out early, they put on a fair bit of growth during the season, fairly resistant to diseases and insect problems. The various types of red-leafed beeches are just stunning, absolutely gorgeous. And they seem to thrive even in the most exposed areas. So it's a plant that seems to be able to handle a lot of climatic zones. And we were just talking before here, the number of different microclimates in St. John's alone, from zone 2s to zone 6, it's a broad bunch of opportunities to grow a wide variety of plant material.
So what's the explainer on the zones for 2 to 6?
Well, 2 being 2, I think when you go up on Signal Hill, you're probably getting down to the bitter ends of 2, probably 1, because it's so exposed and the temperatures modified by the sea and exposure. You go down to, say, Winter Avenue, Waterford Bridge Road. That's as good as it gets here in St. John's. But still, for all that, you go through the backyards along Cowan Avenue, and as you ascend and go up through Cowan Heights, you're going through from, say, Waterford Ridge Road. If you're going up from the bottom of Cowan Avenue, from Boring Park up to the top, you're probably going through 5 or 6 different zones along that 1 mile, 2 mile stretch.
I always feel when I'm out for a run that I can kind of feel it. So we were mentioning, I'll run down like Virginia River Trail summertime.
Yeah.
And then there's a part where you're not at the lake yet for Kitty Vitty, but there's this line each time, and all of a sudden it's like boom, 5-degree drop.
Yep.
Right? That's what it feels like anyways.
Oh, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Your senses are right on because you're experiencing that sudden drop in temperature. That's pretty common throughout St. John's, depending on your exposure. Even from the front of the house to the back of the house, 2 different climatic subzones.
Yeah, meanwhile, like the crowd in CBS is like, what are you talking about? It's always nice out here. It's like, okay, whatever. We got some text. So here we go. I'll put out the numbers and the text line and everything else as people hear me typing. I'm typing because I wanted to see what the weather is like right now in Happy Valley Goose Bay. And sitting right now at 25 degrees, cloudy, and looking at tomorrow, they got a high of 32 in Goose Bay tomorrow. Wow. And I mean, I know we've got, and we can talk a little bit later in the show about like what to keep in mind for watering, as long as there's no water restrictions. When we do get these, especially if you're in central Newfoundland, you're in the big land, and you've got some of these big temperatures from that. From what I've seen online from the weather folks talking about, like the heat dome over the New England to Maritimes and we're on like the edge of it, I suppose. Yeah. But we can have a discussion about that as well. The numbers are 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Text us 709-327-8206. Emails thesignal@cbc.ca, and for emails. Pictures are helpful, right? I can, I've got a desktop here I can turn around, for the discussion for Michael, and like Andrea, who just sent us a note. It says, "Hi," or "Hello, I'm hoping you can help me figure out what the damage on my lilac tree is, because they're blossoming right now.
Yep,
they're in
full bloom.
They are gorgeous,
and they're really suffering from a fungus disorder, which causes the leaf to go kind of a gray color, then to a brown color. You can see some of the leaves fading because of the fungus. First level of protection for any plant situation is sanitation. So I'd get out and start picking off all the affected leaves. And then I'd start a program of using probably the least invasive of fungicides, using lime sulfur mix, Bordeaux mixture it's sometimes called. But when you're doing that, you had to be consistent and do the bark, the leaf. Really, you should have started that program back in May along the bark, or even back in April. But, starting that program on a 10-day, 7-day cycle might help clean that up. But the other thing about that photo, I was surprised because in the front yard where it's open to the street, usually air circulation is very good in the front yards of most homes because of the streetscape, which has air circulation. But then we've had a fairly moist, wet spring and a lot of rainfall, which is very conducive to fungus disorders. And I think with this warm weather, the other piece is watching out for stagnant air or the humidex, the humidity going up. If we get higher humidity and stagnant air, these problems of fungus disorders and other insect issues are going to become more prominent as we go through the season. Yeah,
because it's like you're looking at the lilac tree, and it's the flowers are out, but then you've got these like wilted-looking, cruddy bits that are just
clean them off,
ruining it for the aesthetic.
Sanitation.
Yeah, so get rid of them.
Pick them up. Pick them off.
There you go.
Get them in bag. Get them off site.
Yeah, excellent. All right, that is the lilac, and it's like my favorite kind of flower for this time of year too.
Lovely.
Like just growing up with them, so good.
The fragrance is wonderful. Nice to cut them, bring them into the house, fills the house with the beautiful fragrance of lilac, and there's the other lilac, the Preston lilacs. They all look like they're going to come maybe 10 days from now. Not as nice, but still really grow fast.
I was seeing this thing online about, because you cut lilacs, you bring them in.
Yeah.
And then they wilt 5 seconds after they're the cut.
Water.
And the other thing I saw, and tell me if this is wrong or right, because I can't just believe everything I see on the internet. I mean, 99% sure. But folks were taking the stem and cutting up more. So, because normally it's that clean type, or like maybe a slanted cut, but what they're doing is they're cutting up in the midway section so that there's a slice going way up the stem a bit more, and that way it can drink more water and not die right away.
Exactly. What you're doing is opening up the conductive tissue to take more water inside, which will sustain it and keep it going for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and if it's if it's a public lilac tree, just cut it at night when no one's around to see you, to get mad at you. I did not say that. I'm kidding. Don't touch the public stuff. Just take it from your neighbor. All right, this is The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. Let's see. We've got Yvonne on the line from Glovertown. Hi.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good, cloudy, windy, no fire.
Oh, hey, no flies. No flies is pretty good out in Glovertown.
Yeah, we have by the water, so we got some wind. I try to arrange my backyard garden, big difference. So it's a question is, I have not put like seed like carrot and anything yet because I have new soil to put in the bed first.
Right.
It is too late to put it.
No.
Second, the question is, I read a lot, look a lot in the internet about fertilizer.
Yep.
So they have like used banana and grow some strawberry and eggshell. I use eggshell. Should I bake it? Because when I look in internet, they said you bake in the oven and then crush it.
For eggshells.
Oh, eggshells.
Yeah. Or because we eat a lot of rice every day, so I want rice water. They said good to be used for water in the garden.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that because like when you're making rice, like so
Wash the rice.
we wash it like 4 times.
Yeah.
And so there's water. You just is
Take
that
that water
so
out.
how's that for plants and also for eggshells for fertilizer?
Well, calcium is the first thing that comes to mind, and then the membrane inside the egg is a protein source, and when proteins break down, then then you get various components of ammonia been released, so there's a little bit of nitrogen associated with that. The calcium is a buffer, and that's a plant microelement that helps as well. So those are the 2 things that come to mind when you're doing. I'd crush them down as much as possible. Often we will compost those as well because that'll break them down as well. But yeah, I can see the benefit of using eggshells and crushing them down and introducing them into the garden. It makes some good sense.
Yeah, in the Foodland, not Foodland, in grocery store, in the season, like they have a lot of overgrow or banana. When I look to the internet, banana is good and the peel, whatever. So I said maybe I just buy when on sale and then use up in the garden. I don't know if it's worth or not. But when you look internet, sometimes I don't know is real or they just show and then many tweaks to grow vegetable in a garden in overseas.
Yeah.
So we live in Canada and in a warm country where it's so different. So that's a good idea with rice water because I want to drain the water and in the sink.
Yeah.
And get gone, now I said, now I collect it. And I will use it in my garden. We'll see how it's going, how it worked this year. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
No problem. Good luck.
Thanks for the call. Good luck.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was wondering that, right?
So the banana is interesting because bananas are fairly high in potassium, which is a major plant nutrient, helps with fruit production and flowers. So that makes a lot of sense. I'd compost it, but mashing them up or chopping them up, putting through some kind of grinding process so you break up and make them more mixable or to incorporate into the soil would be a good thing, I think. Just straight composting is another way.
Yeah.
The rice water makes some sense. You're probably getting some calcium. And again, there's fairly high protein associated with rice. And if you're washing it out, you're probably getting some, again, pieces of protein, which then break down into ammonia-based plant foods. So, yeah, I can buy into those good things.
Yeah, it's there, especially if you're like Yvonne was saying, if you're making rice every day, you're getting a fair bit of water there.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of water.
For us, I think it's like a weekly thing. We don't eat rice every day, but a weekly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
My parents sent a text. I showed you that picture, right?
Yeah.
Let me get back to this.
That's a keeper.
Yeah, right. So out in next to their place, they found a rare flower on the property, lady slipper orchid. Tell me about those.
Oh yeah, well that's a rare orchid. Usually they like kind of moist, not soaking wet, but moist locations, fairly high organic matter, sunny. And they're a treasure. When you see them, they're kind of wow, and they're spectacular colors.
Gorgeous looking flower.
Beautiful looking flower. Usually stands anywhere from a foot, 15 inches, maybe a little less. That 14 inches, 12 inches, and the bloom is spectacular. I don't even know. I think they might be a protected species.
All right, so Mom and Dad, don't pick it.
No, I wouldn't pick it. I think it's a pity to pick them.
No, of course. It's just gorgeous there in the backyard.
Yeah, just enjoy it. If it's on their property, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
The more the better.
Yeah, you watch a little bunny rabbit probably eat it later in the day, and there you go.
There's the thing now that I'm seeing as I'm driving around, and many of us are, the number of rabbit roadkills means that rabbit populations are really high, and I'm seeing some rabbit damage through the winter. And those pesky creatures, when they get going in a garden, they can cause an awful lot of damage. So warning gardeners about rabbits and getting into the garden, eating everything that they find succulent and juicy and tasty, which is basically the same things we do.
A friend of mine just sent me, it said, lady slippers, I think it's the Harbor Main way. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But it's another picture of a lady slipper. Dime a dozen out that way until the slugs eat them. So who needs Netflix, right? Yeah. Confirmation, yes, Harbor Main.
Harbor Main, the land of lady slipper.
There you go, right? The town flower.
Ooh, is it?
I don't know, but it should be.
Should be, yeah.
Should be.
Yeah.
We got that other picture in earlier from Sarah, right? Who had so it was a picture with little gray pods that looked weird, to use my descriptive word there. Could be Miracle Gale or Sweet Gale.
Sweet Gale, okay. That's a kind of a plant that you'll see around wetlands. I'm wondering, is it an immature bud that hasn't, because the way it's situated looks like it might be a bud. If it isn't a bud, is it a fungus disorder that's gotten into the bud that's causing that unusual growth of virus? Something like that strikes me.
So then how do you police, what do you do there?
Clean it.
Clean it. Okay. Yeah.
Cut it back hard, get it off the site.
Yeah.
Always cut, get out.
So if it looks weird and ugly on a plant, cut it off.
Chances are
you got to get rid of it. Easy.
Not get rid of the plant.
No.
Cut back hard.
Cut the plant back is what I mean.
Cut
Keep the plant. Save as much as you can.
Get the root. Yeah. Holding onto that root, because that's where it all begins. Once you can hold on to that root, it's amazing what'll come back.
Oh, we had this hydrangea plant, and we were on a vacation the other year and brought it in here. And Mark Strong works with us, is a very good gardener. He cut it back for us. I brought it back to my wife. She's like, what happened? I'm like, no, it'll be, give it time, and it's looking great.
Best thing in the world.
Yeah. Give it a little cut.
Yeah.
All right. You're listening to The Signal. It is gardening day. Michael Murray is here from Murray's Gardens, Portugal Cove. We've got a growing queue for the phones, but there's still room. If you would like to join the conversation, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. The text line, 709-327-8206, or thesignal@cbc.ca for emails. And the range for the show, it's a range of talking about what's on the go in your garden. You can brag. You can tell us about if you're having a great season already. If you're running into issues, we can commiserate with you. Michael here can give you tips. So let's see what George is calling about from Gander. How you doing, George?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for taking my call, gentlemen.
Thanks for calling.
Michael, first of all, before my question, I'm curious on the potatoes, red Argenta, how they did. Did they overwinter?
Lovely, thank you. And thank you for your note. They wintered well. They're very tasty potatoes. We did a little research and sent that on to you folks out there. Yeah, and we traced it back to an introduction.
Holland?
Yes, at Holland, that's right. That's right. And then we start investigating, because Holland, anybody in the world of horticulture knows that Holland, the Dutch were the masters of plant introductions, going back to the golden age of the emergence of the Dutch Republic. These guys went all over the world collecting everything they could lay their hands on, bringing them back, propagating them. And so it became for Europeans a center of excellence in plant collection and breeding. And then as the explorers and then the settlers started to come to the New World, finding varieties that would stand up. It's funny about potato because really it's a New World plant that comes out of South America, then through the Spanish introduction or conquest or slaughter of the indigenous folks of South America. They collected plants too, brought them back, and it must have found its way to Holland. First, all those members are members of the Solanaceae or nightshade family, and they were collected, I believe, really for ornamentals, but then somebody must have tasted them. Tomatoes is a member of the same group of plants. So, no, it's wonderful, the history of that introduction and the value your family puts to it and preserving it and keeping in the garden. It's a wonderful plant, stands up and stores extremely well. That's the quality, I think, that is valued by your family and others who know it. Great plant, well done.
I think it's so cool to know the history because for years, I'm kind of figuring out exactly where they were from, and now as I pass them on to other people, I can sort of explain to them where they come from, so everybody is kind of fascinated with the story. Yeah,
the story of plants, plant collections, and how it's weaved into the history of exploration and the development of civilization is in itself, something like pepper is the story of pepper is a huge story of conquest, subjugation, war. Mutiny on the Bounty. The story of the Bounty is predicated around collecting breadfruit from the South Pacific and then moving it into the Caribbean to give a source of carbohydrate to feed slaves. The same with salt fish, food and the transportation of food and the subjugation of people seem to have a shared history. None of it, some of it unpleasant, some of it interesting and provocative.
I spent a lot of time in Indonesia. I've been there several times. Wow. And the Spice Islands and all this, of course, is where a lot of this stuff originally came from. Yeah. There's a wonderful book that just, the name of it is Pepper. And then the whole story of pepper going back to the 1500s and the Dutch going out into those parts of the world is itself an amazing story. Some of the places, I remember being down in Sri Lanka and Indonesia, sometimes I used to pick pepper, actually pick it, and I'd carry it around in a little film container. And I tell you, when you got it right from the tree, it's so nice and it's really spicy. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, that's a great experience. And bringing up Sri Lanka is one of those places on the earth, like Colombia, has one of the great, biodiversity. You talk about orchids. Whoa, you're getting into orchids to the nth degree. Fantastic flora and diversity to beat nobody else on the planet. Fantastic. I'm pretty sure it's Marco Polo said it was one of the most beautiful islands in the world. Yeah. Gorgeous. Michael, my question today, what I want to talk about today is that the school here at the Gander Academy, we got a new Gander Academy. It was put in probably about 2 years ago, and they planted a pile of trees. And there a couple of weeks ago, I called up and talked to the lady from Munn, and I said that a lot of birch were over there, and they were looking really, really bad. And I said I thought they were a river birch. And anyway, I found a tag on one of the trees, and they are a river birch. Yeah. And I did some research, and from the tag, these trees are actually from Oregon, a nursery in Oregon, and they're native to Missouri, and they say they're very heat tolerant, and it sounds like they're probably used to swampy places. I suspect they're probably good in St. John's, but I think in Gander they're not. But one of the problems that she suggested to me, because I said they looked like they were planted too deep, so I went over and I dug around the trunk of a few of them, and the root flare, basically I dug up like around 3 of them, the root flare was 3 or 4 inches under the ground, and I dug up around one of the river birch, and the root flare was about 6 inches under the ground. I dug around one, they had a blue spruce. I dug around the trunk of the blue spruce, and the root flare was probably about 4 inches under the ground. And I tell you, these river birch, they're really looking pitiful. What do you think? And I guess it's almost too late. There's nothing you can do about that? Cut back hard. But you're in the land of birch. You're in the land of
Betula peperifera, paper birch. And I would suggest that looking around, I mean, I'm looking in my garden and I'm seeing all these little seedlings of paper birch, yellow birch, and I look at them and say, oh, now, that guy there, I put a little tag or a mark, and then next spring I'll just lift him with a shovel and move him. But you guys have paper birch as your natural or indigenous birch there. That's the plant I would try to find. You'll find it it's a succession plant, so you'll even find it around the edges of gravel pits, places where disturbed soil has occurred. And I'd focus on trying to collect those, if you can, from that kind of wild situation.
Oh, they probably got about 40 or 50 of them planted over there. They planted about 2 years ago.
How are they doing?
They're doing really, really pitiful. They look like they're on the verge. They're just struggling to survive. And I just think that, according to the research I did, it just looks like river birch, like the other birch, paper birch and all that, perfect for here.
Yeah.
But I think that river birch is just not meant to be grown in a location in the zone 4B that we're in.
Yeah, I think that's your issue. The other thing with birch, if you see them occurring, they usually are mixed in with black and white spruce, fir. So it's a plant that seems to want to have the protection of the other native conifers that give it the protection it needs to thrive and grow. It's kind of rare when you see just pure strains or pure stands of birch. Usually I think what happens is the conifers are cut out, the birches are left behind. They survive in some places where the exposure is minimal. They thrive. But I agree with you. I think that introduction coming from Oregon to Gander, it's a trip too far.
and I think one of the biggest problems, I think they're all planted too deep. I don't know why people plant stuff deeper than what they should be.
Totally agree. You know, when you see a tree blown over in the wind, the root systems really aren't much deeper. They're in that zone between 10 inches to a foot, and even shallower. And I totally agree that that's a real problem. You know, people tend to plant them much too deep. Then it gets to be a problem of the roots being able to have air exchange or gas exchange, and they don't thrive. So I'm totally on side. You're a good observer of plant materials.
Thank you so very kindly, Michael, and it's a pleasure. God bless you, and happy gardening.
Happy gardening to you as well. Yeah, it's lovely to see this kind of interest and understanding and trying to understand the relationships of plants. I like looking at plants in the wild, and then how does it come from the wild to the cultivated side? That's the yin and the yang of the plant world. And I think, you know, ornamental gardening is pushing back the wild to accommodate the ornamental side of things that we value so much. And it's a constant battle.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
It is fun because, you know, it can't all be alder bushes.
No. But don't dismiss the alder bush.
No, they're great. They have their place, right? You know.
So I'll tell you one thing about alder bushes. When they put in back, geez, it must be 20, 30 years ago, they put a water line from Windsor Lake into the city, brand new water line and the divided highway. And I was fascinated to see they just hydroseeded. The hydroseed came very flimsy, but then the alders came, and then came the cherry. And now there's a black spruce, white spruce mix, and it's towering around that strip of road. And they must be, they're hitting, 15, 20 feet high.
Yeah.
Succession of plant material, it amazes me.
No. Let's go back to the phones. We got Ron on the line from St. John's. Hi.
Hi, Adam.
How you doing?
I had a question for Michael.
Yeah.
I've been calling in weekly trying to find out. I'm trying to find a source in Canada for a plum tree that's resistant to black knot.
Oh.
I'm just wondering if Michael knows of any variety that might work. I think Tim gave me one last week, but he wasn't sure if it was resistant or not.
I think it was like semi-resistant, which is like no.
That's the holy grail of plums, I think, is trying to find the most resistant variety, and they're constantly looking for that. I think if you check with Evan Murray at our garden centre, Evan is constantly looking for varieties of black knot resistant plums, and he's managed to find a few. I can't off the top of my head come up with them, but why don't you make a call there or send an email along, murraysgardencenters.com, and ask about that, and they may give you a rundown on what they have. And they're constantly looking for exactly what you're looking for, the resistant varieties.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much for that.
No problem.
Thanks, Ron. Good luck with it now.
It's a toughie.
Because when you're thinking of plum trees, it'd be like, wouldn't it be nice to have one that didn't have like the possibility of having black knot on it?
My wife's got in what we call the family orchard, and there must be I think 8 or 9 different types of plums. The plums haven't flowered yet. She looked at me the other day and said, we went out with that baseball bat and beat up those plums.
That's right.
And she said, no blooms. She says, I don't think we beat them up enough. So I said, well, I guess we'll have to get, the baseball bat out again.
Out again for next season. So nothing on them?
Not yet. Yeah. The bloom. Funny thing, the apples, wonderful, great bloom of apples. And then I said to her, the other day, because it's full bloom, and I'm saying this to everybody, we've had a great bloom of apples everywhere this year. It seems to be just absolutely fantastic. And I said, why don't you get your Swiffer duster now and go out and start dusting through and see if you can get some pollination. We're doing that with tomatoes as well in the greenhouses. And I made fun to suggest it's her birthday recently, so I made fun to say, I'm going to get you a bee suit so that you can be out there playing the role of a honeybee. It's funny, we have honeybees, several hives on the farm, but it's been so bloody cold that the bees aren't flying, but I think they're flying today.
Nice. I've got a couple texts. Here's one on my phone. Let me see. This is from Dave Squires. Hey, Adam, Dave here. Our neighbor has a maple tree, and the leaves are turning, drying up, and falling, which is not great.
No, no. I always, it's a broad question, and often these problems go back to what's in the soil. What's the root system like? What's the drainage like? Is there any toxic materials have been introduced? I see around work in construction sites, inadvertently people take things like paint thinners or oil or salt or salt water and just dump them indiscriminately. They always seem to go towards the edge of the forest on a construction site, dump it there, thinking that that's a good place for it. And really, it's the worst place in the world for it. So I always think about, did something toxic happen here? Did something happen to block the conductive tissue in the plant that isn't getting nutrient and water to the top of it?
So, like, for example, if the bark all the way around gets damaged,
girdle bark.
There's nothing you can do.
Nothing you can do. Yeah. But it's funny, even I've seen trees that have been damaged by rabbits and even beavers, and just a couple of strands connecting the top to the bottom. And if you love it and you care for it, it's amazing to see how they'll come back and heal. So I never give up until it's over.
Done. Sarah sent another follow-up. Just so this is the email about the grape pods, right?
What'd she say?
And no, just thanks. Worried it's a fungus. It's been there all winter.
Yeah, sounds like a fungus disorder.
So cut it back.
Is it is it a wet area where she's growing it? That's the other question. The habitat.
All right, I'll ask.
I'm going to ask that question. Because they seem to thrive around damp. When you come down by the Confederation Building, there's loads of it growing in the marshlands around there, and that's what it likes. So is it a plant that's out of place?
You're listening to The Signal. It is Gardening Day. If you'd like to join the conversation, call us 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. The text line is open, 709-327-8206, or email us thesignal@cbc.ca. Michael Murray of Murray's Garden Centre, Portugal Cove, is in with me this week. Got a couple texts here. Let me see. After transplanting my red alert tomato 5 to 6 days ago in the greenhouse, the top leaves appeared to be wilting. That's from Jerry.
Okay. Pinch off the first thing I think is, what's the soil like? Is the soil in good shape? When I'm transplanting tomatoes, the first thing is it's stressful. You're moving them from one to the next. You'll get a little setback. Too much water can cause problems. Too little water. So that moderation of water, not watering too frequently. And then a nice fertilizer to use for transplants. A transplant fertilizer, something of 10-52-17 comes to mind, fairly high in phosphorus. Try a little bit of that for 2 or 3 waterings, 10 days apart, and then go over to 20-20-20 for the rest of the season. When you have that kind of situation, is it too hot? Is the temperature elevated? I mean, today you'd have to have, worse tomorrow, but today in a greenhouse you've got to have ventilation to try to keep optimum temperatures. 20, 25. Inside I've seen, 35. That's way, way too hot. So is it ventilated properly? These are the issues you'd have to ask and get some sense of.
Speaking of heat, Vicky sent a note. Last year, I had an amazing strawberry yield, but the big red berries were not sweet at all. Research suggested that unusually hot or cold temps at critical points could cause this. I renovated the beds, and they're looking great, covered in flowers. Some berries have already set. Is the approaching heat dome going to mess with my strawberries? Is there anything I can do to protect them? Thanks, from Vicky.
The heat, is if we hit 29 degrees, 30 degrees, I'm not sure what it's going to be. That will certainly slow down the optimum of the tree, of the strawberries. You know what I would do with that strawberry crop is I'd get the duster to start getting pollination up. The only thing that I'd be concerned of, there's a little bug that's associated with strawberry. It is a grub that goes in through the bottom, keeps the flower tight. They feed on the petals, or feed on the filaments, on the reproductive organs in the middle of the plant. That's the most damaging insect, and being cognizant of that and keep your eye open for that is important. Other than that, if she's got bloom and the temperature's right,
hey, that's it.
Just keep them moist and take care.
Keep them moist and take care. All right, there we go. This is, if you have any follow-up questions too, folks, when you email, feel free to call us or email again with follow-ups. I'm doing my best to monitor things. Here's Don from Salmon Cove sent us a text. Hello, A&M. What surprises me, despite the weather, everything comes. Garlic, rhubarb, lilacs, flowering crab, and your guess is right. The weather with lots of moisture was great. Apple blossoms are on. Great program.
Yeah.
I like the update.
Yeah. He's right everywhere. I've, some years with apple, we're on the edge here, but some years it's just fantastic. Bloom like we're getting. If we don't get any frost, which it doesn't look like, and you had the inclination to go out with your duster and pollinate, you're going to get a great set of apples.
Update again from Sarah. Yes, wet area right next to the pond, and we can see the pond at the edge of the picture.
Okay. That's good habitat for them.
Okay.
So is there a lot more sweet gale around that location? Because I'd be careful that guy has a fungus disorder and doesn't get into the other parts of the population. I'd have an inclination to take him out completely. You don't want to disseminate a disease to the rest of the native population that's there.
Okay.
It's unusual. It looks like a virus kind of thing that's happening.
Interesting. All right, Sarah, there you go. If there's any other questions, keep the emails coming. Let me see. Now, moss. Hey, this is from Daryl now. This spring, I dethatched my lawn in order to get rid of moss. I limed and aerated it in order to prevent moss from coming back. The lawn has no shady areas. And are there any other things I can do to prevent moss? And are there any negatives to applying a generous quantity of lime to a lawn?
No, you're doing the right thing. Up your lime considerably. I would go as much as a rate of anywhere from 15 to 20 pounds of agricultural limestone per 100 square feet. That's pretty high dosage. You want to try to get that pH of the soil 6.5, 6.8. Grass seems to thrive in, say, 6.5 or 6.5. Doing the right things. An overseeding of a good seed mixture, fescue with bluegrass, in a top dressing would introduce more seed species back into. We have this interesting machine called a seed slicer. It opens up a furrow, drops the seed in, and covers in, rolls it in. We tested it last year on my lawn, and my wife has mowed the lawn 4 times this year, and she's saying, "What you use that? What did you have to put all this seed in?" And I said, "Well, the walnuts have healthy." So more seed overdressing would help introduce more seed species, and that might help.
See, we've got moss in our back lawn. I don't mind it, but my issue is that, because there's still grass around it, I've got like an Atom-powered push mower, but the moss makes it harder to push mow the stuff because the wheels sink down. Yeah, so it's kind of frustration. I'm like, no, I don't mind you. There's less grass. This is great. But then I'm like, it's making it harder for me to mow this. But,
so here's Moss wants to.
Yeah.
Let it.
Yeah. That's what I think. Well, I mean, I'm not going to be messing around with it. I'll tell you that much.
No.
Yeah.
I listen, I have moss in lawns, and I think it's nice and green, good cover. Kids love to run in it. What's it all about?
It's nice and soft.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, leave well enough alone.
All right, folks. It is. This is The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. It is gardening day. If you have any questions, if you need some tips, if you want to just talk about what's going on in your garden, we are here for you. So the numbers to call are 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. You can text us 709-327-8206. Email us thesignal@cbc.ca. My guest is Michael Murray. What should folks be thinking about when it comes to watering? Because we get these, there's the heat that's coming. It's only a few days, and then it looks like it's going to, at least in St. John's area, I'm looking at the long range now. Monday looks like it's going to tip down to maybe 14 again, right? Yeah. Friday, chance of showers too. So, but we got a few days of heat. Should people be doing anything special, or does it matter?
We've had a lot of rain. The soil is very moist. It's a pleasure to dig it in now. It's really receptive to plant material seeding. We're going to have 2 days of fairly warm temperatures. Bit of an anomaly.
We're fine.
Enjoy it. Sit back.
Yeah. Right.
Have a cold drink.
Mix a drink.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Watch things grow.
Yeah, it's...
this too will pass.
Just a few days of it, not too bad.
Yeah.
Right now, how many days would it be where you should start to be like?
If we got into 5 days, 6 days. If you got plants out on decks in pots, I'd be checking them day after tomorrow, because plants are going to transpire when those temperatures are up. They're going to transpire, go through a lot of water. And that's any container plant, I'd be paying attention there. In the garden itself, at ground level, fair bit of moisture down deep in the soil. It'll just come up through. But containers, pay attention.
So, and if you are transplanting, like, for example, I was talking about the perilla leaves that we have, a couple of the little edible plants that we're growing. For transplanting those, if we are thinking of like some kind of health, plant food, fertilizer type stuff. Is this where we talk about the 10, 52, 17, 20, 20, 20 after, or not?
If you're bent that way, if you're an organicist and you want to stay that side of it, I would focus on limestone and as much compost as you can incorporate into the garden, and then stay clear of the chemical fertilizers. I have an inclination you're of that bent.
Yeah, totally.
And so that's what I would do, and I'd stay clear of those fertilizers. Good compost is pretty balanced. Getting some kelp and incorporating that into compost or into the garden directly, that's not a bad practice. Saw lots of folks out on Clark's Beach about a month ago collecting, and I stopped and I watched, and they were collecting a fair bit of kelp from the beaches.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic too. It's using that product that's coming from nature and bringing it back into nature again for a useful purpose.
Here's an email: lilac bacterial blight. What to do? 2 question marks.
Yeah. Well, pick off all of the affected leaves.
Yeah.
If this is a problem that's been reoccurring year after year, you've got to get into some program of of spraying the bark back in April before the leaves come, and continue that spray program using something like lime sulfur Bordeaux mixture, it's called, and being consistent. That's the thing, is being consistent on a 7-day, 10-day cycle. Spray bark, under leaves, and see if you can subdue the spores from reproducing and causing the fruiting bodies to coming in.
Best tree for ... is the subject of this email. Ready?
Yeah. All right.
Hi. Could you suggest a good tree to plant in an area open to the wind, slightly below the grade of a busy road where salt spray would be a consideration? I have a couple of pine trees there now, and they are not doing so well. Thank you, Gary.
Okay, white spruce. White spruce. White spruce, all you got to do is go out to Middle Cove and just sit on the beach and look on both sides of it. The plant that's hanging onto the edge of those cliffs is white spruce.
Yeah, and if it can survive there.
If it can handle living out at the edge of the North Atlantic, you can just about handle anything. So white spruce first.
Yeah.
And I think white spruce needs, again and again, be a major part of the landscape here. Even man-made landscapes, it's the first plant I want to introduce, because when you have that kind of plant standing up to the wind and the salt spray, then the opportunity in the lee of that is where more interesting plants, I shouldn't say interesting, more variety of plant material can be grown.
We've got Tom Angiers on the line from Happy Valley Goose Bay. Hi, Tom.
Hey, how are you doing today?
Good. What's the farming update like? How are things going?
We got a little bit of wind, but lots of sun. We've had just a fantastic year this year.
Good.
Excellent, excellent. What are you growing, and what's being put out to folks?
Well, we put in a lot of transplants thanks to the provincial transplant program.
Right.
We got about 83,000 plants in the ground.
That's pretty good. 83,000.
Yeah, turnip and cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, lettuce, onions. Yeah.
Sandy soil. Sandy soil.
Sandy soil.
And what are you doing? Are you using anything to bring some organic matter? Using peat, compost, manure? What are you doing to deal with that issue?
Yeah, we've been able to use manure until our petting barn got shut down. But right now, this year, we're planting oats and peas.
Okay.
For next year.
Yeah.
And but weed control, we're just using black plastic mulch.
Yeah.
With drip irrigation.
Yeah.
So we put in 40,000 feet of black plastic mulch.
Wow. Yeah.
We have 10,000 pounds of potato seed planted.
Wow. They do well in that sandy soil.
Yeah. 200,000 carrots put in.
Wow.
And about 3,600 feet of sugar snap peas.
Wow, that's excellent. Tell me about your market. All local market, people, roadside market, direct. How you marketing your produce? You're producing a lot of plant material.
Yeah, so we're just going wherever we can. We never really in 3 decades had support from the retailers or wholesalers in Goose Bay. Mm-hmm. So we got to go roadside. We have our own farmers market at our farm.
Good.
And we got approved on the Nutrition North program to be able to fly charter to Iqaluit.
Wow. Excellent.
So that'll be the first time. If we pull it off, we got to get the customer established. But there is a delegation coming to Goose Bay for the expo.
Excellent.
Labrador Expo. But we're on the Nutrition North program for all the northern communities. So we ship there. And we truck quite often. We're able to truck down to the south coast of Labrador.
Tell me about climate change and its effects, and are you seeing any climate change effects there?
Well, it's made it better growing conditions for us.
Yeah.
This was the first brown Christmas I've seen in 30 years.
Yeah.
So it's changing. We are getting a bit more heat exposure in the summertime, but it's not really got crazy for us like the rest of the world's going.
Yeah.
So, we're planning on doing a hydroponic greenhouse production.
Good.
And so we're going through for all the approvals and the paperwork to get that going. We should have start construction hopefully by late fall.
Yeah.
And when's the expo, Tom?
25th to 27th.
Excellent. All right. Listen, keep us updated on how stuff is going. I love the Nutrition North update and just knowing what you're growing, what you're putting out, and where it's headed to. I appreciate it.
I have one other question.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Mike.
We're coming up to the longest day of the year now, shortly on Thursday. What's the day length in your location on the longest day?
So we've got sunlight around 4 o'clock, 3:45 in the morning to 10:30 at night.
Wow.
A lot of growing degree days.
Yeah, a lot of growing degree days. Yeah, indeed you have.
Wow.
Ever test corn in that location? No?
I have grown corn. I did it through transplant, and it did phenomenally well.
Wow.
So if we had a corn machine that's putting down the mulch at the same time, like they use on the island, that would we could grow corn for sure.
Yeah, wow. I was thinking that with that heat units.
Yeah.
Well done.
Amazing. Well, Tom, thanks for the update.
Have a good season.
And have a great season. And looking forward to hearing from you again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can always grow it. We just always have a hard time selling it.
Oh, always. Yeah. That's the trick.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah.
Cheers, buddy.
All right, that's it, guys. Thanks, bye.
One of the things, Adam, that he's absolutely growing stuff is one thing, and I've spent a lifetime at it, and trying to come up with various innovative ways of marketing. In the Northeast Avalon, we've started to be our second year with the food hub that we have in place here, and we're getting more people interested in it. I was surprised. I was skeptical, to tell you the truth, when we started down this road a year ago. But the amount of interest was tremendous. The support from people placing orders and picking up the assembly of it's kind of like a cooperative operation where growers are all around the Avalon and some off the Avalon are bringing plant materials or rather putting produce through the food hub. And I think those kinds of innovative marketing efforts need to be more widely explored.
Yeah. And for anyone who's growing anything out there, right, I like hearing on this show where you are, what you're doing, how much you're growing, how it's going, because the more conversations we have around this, the more we can get an idea of just the systems that are out there and where the food is, right?
Yep.
And how it's growing, what's being done, because that way we have an idea when it comes to bigger discussions around food security of what reality is.
And kudos to the CBC for doing that. I'm seeing a lot more interest around food security, producers. Please continue that for all of our sakes. Thanks for doing it. I'd like to see more stories around this because that gentleman in Labrador, he's doing some really interesting pioneering things. And as climate change grips us deeper and deeper, we're going to have more local producers taking advantage of this, I guess, the challenges that come with it. And I think we're going to rise and adapt to those challenges.
Here's one last question for you for today. I mean, there might be one other question after this, but here's another question. I'll phrase it that way. From Pat. Anything new in the last few years in the tried and true perennials that are variegated or dwarf or a usual color, etc., that are not fussy and good to grow?
That's the eternal question.
Yeah.
New plants with unusual colors, interesting blooms, hardy, resistant to disease. Constant battle. You go to any seed catalog, first thing you'll see in a good seed catalog, what are the new plants? What are the new introductions? And it's a constant activity. I was off yesterday getting some various types of dianthus, members of the carnation family, and I was looking at there's an interesting red colors in some of the various dianthus. The other thing is creeping phlox. I've seen different colors of blues, yellow, blues, whites, and shades of blue. So within those kinds of plants, which are fairly easy to manipulate in terms of breeding programs, there's more variation, more variety happening. So that's constantly going on. That's the life of plant materials.
That's the life of plant materials.
Yeah.
What if we got 1 minute left? What are you doing for the rest of your day?
For me, I'm hoping that I can get out to plant a couple of things. My wife's got a plant, a small walnut, a juglin is the family. It's called a heart nut, and I'm hoping I can get those planted. It's a new plant for us. It's a plant that produces an edible walnut. I'm looking forward to that, getting that in the ground.
30 seconds. What's your best tomato sandwich recipe for when the season strikes us?
I think open-faced sandwich today, salt and pepper, more pepper than salt, a little mayonnaise, and some assaggio cheese over the top under the grill.
There you go.
That's my recipe today.
See, I grew up a Miracle Whip person. Now I'm a mayonnaise person.
There you go.
I've been converted.
My son Cameron says, "Oh, Miracle Whip! Oh, how gauche!"
Yeah, I don't know what happened. One day I was like, you know what, mayonnaise is way better. So there we are.
You have been enlightened.
Yes, I've seen the light. Michael Murray, thank you so much. All right, folks, that is it for another gardening day here on the Signal. Every Tuesday during the grow season, we are here for you. We're rooting for you, as I said at the start of the show. Tomorrow, we're hitting the road, going all the way out to God's country, as they say, all the way out to Conception Bay South. We'll be live from Holy Spirit High School to talk to the graduating class of 2024. What was high school like? What's the last year been like? What do students think about heading into this next chapter of life in this year, 2024? What are your hopes, your dreams, you students out there who I'll be talking to? That's tomorrow on The Signal. The Signal, a show that's in your community, about your community, radio that cares about you and yours.